Get out. People like you don't belong here. The words ripped through the golden lobby like cracks of thunder in a storm. Guests froze, their conversations cut short, forks paused midway above plates, phones instinctively rising into the air to capture the humiliation unfolding before them. The grand chandeliers sparkled above, but the elegance of the setting could not mask the ugliness of the scene below. A man, tall and broad-shouldered, his dark skin glowing under the harsh lights, was being shoved toward the revolving doors of one of the most prestigious hotels in the city. His suitcase toppled over, his documents scattered, his dignity stripped bare in front of strangers. The security guard's hands were firm, rough, and unrelenting. Each push sent a message that was louder than the shouts. Behind the front desk, staff smirked openly, some turning to one another with mocking glances, others pretending to be busy while savoring the moment. It was cruelty served with confidence, arrogance broadcast for all to see. Before we dive deep, what country are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. Also smash that subscribe button right now. Turn on the bell so you never miss these stories, because what's about to unfold will shake you to your core, and trust me, you won't want to miss it. The man being humiliated was not an ordinary guest. His suit was simple but tailored, navy fabric resting perfectly on his shoulders, shoes polished until they caught the light. He carried himself with a quiet authority, a calmness that spoke of experience and power. Yet none of that mattered here. To the staff, he was invisible, unwanted, an intruder to be mocked and discarded. They laughed as if his pain was entertainment, as if shoving him out into the cold was part of their evening shift. What none of them knew was that this man was their boss. His name was Marcus Hall, a self-made black entrepreneur who had built an empire from the ground up. He was the silent force behind this very hotel, the reason the chandelier sparkled, the marble shone, the room sold for more than most people's monthly salaries. But he had chosen to walk in quietly, undercover, stripped of title and position, to see how his staff treated those they believed held no power. And what he found was arrogance, cruelty, and humiliation laid bare. The crowd of guests whispered, their voices sharp and cutting. Some were outraged, others curious, but all were drawn into the spectacle. A mother pulled her child closer, shielding him from the sight. A group of businessmen pulled out their phones, eager to capture what they believed was another viral moment. The humiliation was not private. It was public, loud, and unforgettable. When Marcus was finally forced through the revolving doors into the biting night air, the weight of the insult pressed heavy on his chest. The cold wrapped around him, but it was nothing compared to the fire that burned within. He bent to gather his belongings, each item a symbol of the dignity stripped from him. His hands were steady, his face calm, but inside, his heart pounded with controlled fury. And then, he waited. For 20 long minutes, Marcus stood beneath the glowing lights of the hotel entrance. He didn't move. He didn't shout. He didn't beg for an apology. He simply waited, silent, his tall figure framed by the glass doors behind which arrogance still reigned. Inside, the receptionist leaned back lazily in her chair, scrolling through her phone with a smirk still plastered on her face. The guard who had shoved him bragged openly to another employee, gesturing with his hands, reliving the moment as if it were a triumph. The manager sipped her coffee, her lips curved into a satisfied smile, eyes sweeping the lobby like a queen who had won a battle. They thought they had erased him. They thought they had asserted their power. But what they didn't realize was that those 20 minutes were not a retreat. They were a countdown. The guests who had witnessed the scene couldn't stop glancing toward the doors, wondering why the man remained outside. Some filmed through the glass, sensing that something bigger was brewing. Others whispered quietly, unsettled by the smugness of the staff. Tension built in the air, heavy and suffocating, as though the walls themselves knew a reckoning was near. And then it happened. The revolving doors spun once more, and Marcus walked back into the lobby. He did not storm in. He did not shout. His steps were steady, his shoulders squared, his head held high. Two sharply dressed executives flanked him, their presence alone commanding silence. In an instant, the atmosphere shifted. Conversations died mid-sentence. Glasses were set down on tables. Phones rose higher, every lens fixed on the unfolding drama. The receptionist froze, her earlier laughter dissolving into wide-eyed fear. The pen slipped from her hand, clattering against the counter. The guard straightened his posture, his confident smirk collapsing into uncertainty. The manager's coffee cup trembled as she set it down, her eyes narrowing, then widening as realization began to sink in. The guests leaned forward in their seats, some standing, others holding their breath. They knew instinctively that the tide had turned. The man they had seen humiliated was no ordinary guest. He carried himself now with the authority of someone who belonged, not just to the hotel, but above it. The reveal was silent but deafening. Marcus Hall, the man they had mocked, was not a stranger. He was not a trespasser. He was the boss, the owner, the architect of the very empire they had so carelessly disrespected. The truth struck harder than any words could. Shock rippled across the staff. Arrogance drained from their faces, replaced with pale horror. The guard's chest rose and fell quickly, his earlier bravado gone. The receptionist gripped the counter as if it might save her from collapsing. The manager's once smug expression stiffened into disbelief, her power unraveling in front of the same crowd she had entertained with his humiliation. Justice unfolded swiftly, publicly, and without mercy. Without needing to raise his voice, Marcus dismantled the arrogance that had poisoned his empire. One by one, the staff who had ridiculed him were stripped of their roles. The guard who shoved him, the receptionist who mocked him, the manager who stood by and allowed it, all of them were finished. Their downfall was immediate, their humiliation complete. The walk of shame that followed was slow and heavy. The fired staff gathered their belongings in silence, their faces pale as they moved through the lobby they once controlled. Guests watched, some clapping, others recording, all united in witnessing the reversal of power. The same space that had echoed with their laughter now carried only the sound of their defeat. Marcus stood tall in the center of the lobby. His chest rose not with rage but with reclaimed dignity. His presence filled the room, a reminder that true authority does not come from arrogance but from character, from patience, from the ability to withstand humiliation and transform it into redemption. The guests erupted into applause, their claps thundering against marble walls, rattling chandeliers, and drowning out the shuffle of departing footsteps. Phones flashed. Videos spread. The world beyond those walls would soon know what had happened here, that a man stripped of his dignity in public had reclaimed it with quiet, unstoppable power. The humiliation that was meant to break him became the moment that defined him. The arrogance that mocked him became the lesson that destroyed itself. And the lobby that had turned into a stage of injustice became the arena of redemption. Marcus Hall had proven something larger than ownership, larger than wealth. He had proven that true power does not need to shout. It does not need to humiliate. It waits. It watches. And when the time comes, it reveals itself in a way the world cannot ignore. So let this story echo. Let it be a reminder that humiliation may cut deep, but redemption roars louder than any insult. The man thrown out as if he were nothing walked back in as everything. And if this story gripped your heart, don't just watch, take action. Smash that subscribe button right now, turn on notifications, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Because the next story? It will hold you by the throat, shake you to your core, and remind you once again that dignity cannot be destroyed.